Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy. Listen, man, it is draft night, and man, it's gonna be a lot going on. Give me a second, man. Let me switch this camera. Matter of fact, let me put on the intro so I can get myself together. Let's see here. All right. Now, welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. It is draft night, about to kick off in about 44 minutes. And for some young athletes, man, some young prospects, life will change forever. I do not have the chat on, so you guys just feel free to talk amongst yourselves. That's super, super okay with me. So whether you catch this in the live or you catch this in the record, by the end of the night, what I'm saying right now will be past due. But I do want to get into a few things, man. I do want to tell you what I believe is going to happen in the draft, specifically in the AFC North. First and foremost, I believe there is going to be three of the AFC North teams that make a trade tonight. I believe you're going to see the Cleveland Browns make some type of trade. You're going to see the Pittsburgh Steelers make some type of trade, and you're going to see the Baltimore Ravens also make a trade. I don't know if it's going to be a draft capital type trade for the Ravens, whether move it up in the draft or down in the draft, or whether we'll be trading a player. But I do believe there will be a Baltimore Ravens trade tonight or two. I do believe that Pittsburgh makes a trade and the Browns make a trade. In fact, here's what I'm thinking. Actually, I think the Bengals might make a trade as well. Here's what I'm thinking as far as trades in the AFC North. I think the Bengals may try and trade Trey Hendrickson. If he's going to be traded, it's going to be between tonight and tomorrow night, because he is a impact type player, wanting a big contract extension, and the Bengals are not going to give it to him. So I think this is the time of the year that they could flip him for some draft capital, and it may be a pretty sizable haul. Although it may not be as much as we think, being that he wants a contract extension as a part of this trade. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think you may see a player be moved, and it may be a player that has a little bit of surprise to him, but that player is George Pickens. We understand that the Pittsburgh Steelers made a big time trade, bringing in DK Metcalf several weeks to a month ago. And here's the truth: George Pickens is due a contract extension. And if we think that Pittsburgh is going to pay two wide receivers top dollar, we're sadly mistaken. I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers trade George Pickens tonight for some draft compensation, and then they replace him somewhere between the second and third round, and then they double up in the fourth round or later. That's what I think happens for Pittsburgh. I also think you see them try to make a move for a quarterback tonight. Now, there is a lot of speculation about Pittsburgh and Shedeur Sanders. The trouble is that Pittsburgh does not have a second round pick to kind of add into a trade up to get Shedeur. So it's almost certain that if Pittsburgh tries to make a move for Shedeur Sanders, if that's who they're targeting, it almost certainly would include a 2026 first round pick in order to make any type of trade happen. When we look at the Baltimore Ravens, there's a couple of candidates as far as players that could be moved tonight. One is, of course, Mark Andrews, and then the other, I think, is a disgruntled Odafe Owe. I think both of these players, Andrews and Odafe, will not be a part of the Baltimore Ravens after the close of this season. And so the only real way that the Baltimore Ravens can control their draft capital is to trade them to assure what they get in return. I would much rather them trade them early than let them walk late, and then we're waiting on a 2027 compensatory pick versus being able to get our draft capital in the 2025 draft for those players. You also may see a Baltimore Ravens trade where they trade back in the first round in order to gain some more draft capital and do a lot more work on day two. That's less likely. There's a lot of rumors that they really are in love with Malachi Starks. I don't think he's going to be on the board at 27. I think there's a greater chance, if safety is what they're looking at, there's a greater chance that Nick Emenwari is there. But I think Malachi Starks is already gone, if not sooner than the Green Bay Packers. If Malachi Starks is not there, I think the Baltimore Ravens go with offensive line talent. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen in this draft. But let's go all the way up to the top, right? I think it's a certainty that the Tennessee Titans take Cam Ward. I think that's a foregone conclusion. When it comes to the Cleveland Browns and trades, I don't know of any players. Excuse me for that notification, but I don't know of any players that Cleveland would be willing to trade. But I do think that everything's on the table for Cleveland. They could trade back that number 2 overall pick. They could stay there and take Travis Hunter, which is the huge speculation surrounding the Cleveland Browns. Hold on, give me a second, man. Let me turn these notifications off. I typically would have already done it. Sorry about that. There we go. But nevertheless, I think that the Cleveland Browns could so take Travis Hunter, trade back, or take Abdul Carter. I think those are your 3 options. But then, of course, there is the conversation about would they be willing to take Shedeur Sanders? Man, Shedeur is a guy who's either going between 2 and 3, or he's going to drop to the bottom of the top 10, waiting on the New Orleans Saints to possibly take him. If he gets past New Orleans, then you're probably looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think you're going to see probably 4 quarterbacks go in this first round. I think you're going to see, of course, Cam Ward. I think Shedeur Sanders will go in the first round, although there's speculation that he could drop out of the first round. I don't think that will happen. I think you're going to see Jalen Milroe drafted, and I think you're also going to see Jackson Dart drafted. The reason why I think those 4 quarterbacks get drafted in the first round is because you're going to see a team feel some pressure and feel some desperation, especially when their guy on their big board comes off the board. And let's say quarterback was their secondary option. They're going to try and secure that quarterback. All of the quarterbacks in this draft have talent. All of these quarterbacks have a ceiling that they haven't reached yet. And so I think that, excuse me. So I think they all do different things well. And so I think that a team that needs a quarterback, I think you're going to see them make a move to get a quarterback. Those teams are the Cleveland Browns, the New York Giants, the New Orleans Saints, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and let me see who else. I think that's it. I think those are the 4 major teams that need a QB. Now, let me talk about each of the AFC North teams individually. Here's what I think each team should do. If I am a Cleveland Browns fan, I think that the Cleveland Browns should draft Abdul Carter with the number 2 overall pick. Don't trade back for more draft capital. Stand pat and take Abdul Carter, especially if his medicals check out. Here's why. The Cleveland Browns are in a division with Lamar Jackson, who they're going to have to see twice a year at a minimum. Joe Burrow, which they're going to have to see twice a year at a minimum. And then whatever young quarterback the Pittsburgh Steelers get. It could end up being a murderer's row of quarterbacks in one division, right? Well, what's the one way to overshadow and supplant a quarterback? Is to have a top-notch edge rush. If the Cleveland Browns stand pat and take Abdul Carter with the number 2 overall pick, they would have formed, when healthy, the best edge rush duo in the league. That's what I believe. And so if I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, I want them to take Abdul Carter. I understand Travis Hunter is the sexy pick, but I'm thinking about the logical pick. Travis Hunter is not going to help you sack any quarterbacks anytime soon. He's not. Now, he may come on a blitz, he may get an interception, but as far as his immediate impact, I think Abdul Carter has an exponentially higher chance of making a more substantial impact in year one. So that's what I would do if I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. I would stand pat and take Abdul Carter. Then, if I'm looking for a quarterback, I take the 33rd pick um, in this draft, which is number one pick in the second round, which is prime real estate. I package something together and I get back up into the first round and I'll see if I can nab the quarterback of the future. That's how I would play it if I'm a Cleveland Browns or I'm a Cleveland Browns fan and or the Cleveland Browns organization. That's what I would want to see happen. But you know what? Take Travis Hunter. I'm not as scared of Travis Hunter as I am of Abdul Carter combined with a Myles Garrett. But hey, maybe I just don't know ball. All right, let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals with the 17 overall pick. I don't foresee Cincinnati moving up because Cincinnati needs draft capital. So I can see, like I said earlier, I can see the Bengals trading Trey Hendrickson for some draft capital, probably a fourth or fifth round pick, maybe as high as a third. I'm not 100% sure. I can see that happening. But in the first round, with or without a Trey Hendrickson trade, I see the Cincinnati Bengals taking Derek Harmon if he's on the board, because they've already pushed all of their chips into the table offensively with a big deal for Joe Burrow, a big deal for Jamar Chase, a big deal for T. Higgins. Um, they got a big deal with Orlando Brown. So what I see them doing is pushing all their chips in the table and on offense and being explosive offensively and going young and talented defensively, hoping that those guys can work their way into prominent NFL players. And so Derek Harmon would be a good start. Now, if Ashton Jeanty starts to slide, I could see Cincinnati trying to get up to get him because that would make that offense unparalleled. But I think they go defense. I think they go Derek Harmon. Now we go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they have the 21st overall pick. And what I see for the Pittsburgh Steelers is I see them taking a quarterback. The Pittsburgh Steelers have done a good job building their team in free agency, and they've done a good job drafting. Everything they need on defense they have. They could get younger with some defensive tackle play. But I think what they're trying to do is get a quarterback because Mason Rudolph is not going to be enough, I don't think. And so I think that they're going to target Jalen Milroe first to take them off of Cleveland's hands. And if Cleveland does something, or if the Giants don't get Shador and they trade back up, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers end up with Jackson Dart. But I think it's Milroe or Dart for the Pittsburgh Steelers tonight. All right. That's what I think happens. And then for the Baltimore Ravens, I would love to see a level of aggression and see them move up to get a guy. But I think that's less likely. I think it's more likely that you see a couple of trades and you might see them trade back if their guy's not there. But if Malachi Starks is there at 27, they take Malachi Starks, I believe. But if he's not, I see them trade back and I see them going offensive line in the first round. So that's how I see this thing playing out. I'm really excited about this draft, not because it's going to be a game-changing endeavor for the Baltimore Ravens. I think, if anything else, we need to hit on some of these picks so they can be day one rotational pieces, not game changers, not life-changing picks, but just solid rotational pieces so the veterans can get more rest, so that you can start to see the future of the Baltimore Ravens come together, because we're definitely going to need some cheap labor. because there are so many big time contracts coming up for the Baltimore Ravens that we have to hit on some of these players that we're picking. And so I think that if we go offensive line, I think that could be one of the tackles that are still there. Josh Connolly. Um, I think there's another tackle. I can't remember his name. Um, I could see a Gray Zabol be there at 27. I've seen some latest projections that Tyler Booker may be there. If Tyler Booker is there, they take Tyler Booker. But if Tyler Booker is not there, I see them trading back. So that's what I'm thinking, man, about the Baltimore Ravens, the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Browns. So what I'm going to be doing, man, is I'm going to get out of here. I just want to get in here and talk about what I believe is going to happen. I'm going to be back at pick 20, and we're going to be live through the completion of the first round. It'll give me an opportunity to talk about what we've seen and heard thus far. And it'll also give me an opportunity to see how many of the AFC North teams actually did what we talked about, how many of them made trades. It'll also give me an opportunity to learn if the Baltimore Ravens have made a move up the draft board to get someone. So I'm going to be back at pick 20. We're going to jump in here, man. We're going to chop it up all the way to pick 32. So listen, man, I appreciate you guys. I'm your guy, Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.